open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Well, a second Trump juror is dismissed. This is, they were kind of populating that jury pool very quickly, right? I mean, the jury box from the jury pool, maybe if you want to think of it that way, was being populated quite quickly. They had 7. Now they're down to 5. And the reason cited is that the one juror felt that they were not secure, that they feared for their safety because too many of their personal details were revealed by media. I mean, even just the physical descriptions along with what they do for a living. I mean, they essentially gave you a profile minus everything but the name. And so these people who feel quite exposed in what it will be a controversial trial in an increasingly divided nation, they just don't want to take the risk. I mean, there is a level of jury intimidation that has, and I would suggest that it's more than just jury intimidation. It's public service intimidation. Volunteers at polling places feel vulnerable. I mean, what we've done in this country is we've sort of weaponized this one-off terrorism so that people feel like, hey, anything's possible. I can look at what happened to those poll workers in Georgia. And great, so they got a $150 million judgment against Rudy Giuliani, but it doesn't help him now. I mean, A, he can't pay it. B, they've had to move 5 times or whatever it is just to stay safe. They had threats on their lives. So back to the juror. The juror's saying, hey, I'm not down for this anymore. Now, the most recent one is associated with answers on the juror form that prosecutors felt suggested the juror was not being accurate in responding. One of the questions on the juror questionnaire asked if the potential juror or any of their family members were accused of a crime. Under questioning earlier this week, juror 4 had said that he hadn't been convicted of a crime. Well, prosecutors found an article from the 1990s about a person with the same name as the juror who was arrested for tearing down political advertisements. The posters were on the political right. The man's wife may have been involved in a corruption inquiry as well and cooperated with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which is prosecuting Trump's case. Judge Merchan noted that he had instructed the man to come to court this morning to answer questions and verify whether the people involved were him or his relative. He noted the juror's apparent reluctance to come in and asked if both sides would consent to having him removed without further inquiry. The Trump lawyer declined, saying that he wanted to first hear from the man. And the reason for that, I'd suggest, is because on the Trump side, they're just trying to drag out the game, I think, right? And it produces a little bit of delay. On the other hand, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim.
No, I was going to say, and it shows also a political bias, right? So if this guy is busted for ripping down conservative or Republican campaign posters or what have you, then it will show, oh, see, and he made it onto the jury. So it's just another one of these things. They're tainting the jury. I can imagine, what Trump will say on the courthouse steps later on.
Well, right, but the reason I would suggest that that they're just trying to drag it out is that you're getting, the judge is saying you can dismiss this guy. You're getting the chance to dismiss them right away. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand why you wouldn't just take that chance. You're right. I mean, it suggested there that there's a liberal bias or whatever it may be, an anti-Trump bias, et cetera. Certainly anti-right-wing bias. But the judge is saying, great, well, we'll get rid of him, And yet the Trump people are saying, no, let's bring him in. We want to talk to him. Anyway, we're down to 5. The juror who withdrew was targeted by Fox's Jesse Waters. Waters said on his show, I'm not so sure about juror number 2. Waters spoke directly about the juror during his show and questioned whether she could really be fair. The juror told Justice Juan Merchan that she had been contacted by friends and family asking if she was a juror. This speaks to how many details have been revealed about these jurors and how vulnerable they feel. And, you know, you get Fox News will do anything to protect Trump, including revealing whatever information need be revealed about just that.
I mean, if I put myself in their shoes and look at all the horrible things that have happened to anyone that has to do with coming out against Trump, I wouldn't feel safe either.
On the trial off day, Trump complaining about the jury selection process for his criminal case. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it at all, Kim.
There's never been anything like this.
He suggested that he should be entitled to unlimited strikes of potential jurors.
Why? Is he special? Is that why?
Because, not him, Kim, but because it's one of the worst venues in the country.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it?
One of the worst.
It was very inappropriate.
Yeah. I mean, you got to give, he does everything right, and they end up in this.
I did everything right, and they indicted me.
Yeah. Now you end up in one of the worst venues in the country. The former president ripping the jury selection process for this historic trial. He did this yesterday on his day off. It could have been with Barron, you know, playing whatever board game or video game Barron likes to play. Maybe Barron likes to run free in the yard. Melania, Donald, Barron, all singing, whatever they do with their spare time. It's like in Kim's house, it's a house filled with music and familial activities.
Yeah.
That's not the case here. He's got business to do. Posting about the hush money trial on its scheduled off day, Trump, who's repeatedly accused the judge in this case of being biased against him, suggested incorrectly that he should be entitled to unlimited strikes of potential jurors in his criminal case. I thought strikes, he said, were supposed to be unlimited. I was then told we only have 10. Not nearly enough. When we're purposely given the second worst venue in the country? He decried the criminal cases, decried is a ding word, as election interference, part of a witch hunt. Now, under New York law, each side does have an unlimited number of strikes for cause. But the judge presiding over the case, Juan Merchan, can decide whether or not that the cause is worthy of a strike. And you're allowed a limited number of those peremptory challenges. And again, the number is 10 for each side. If you had a higher level of felony, by the way, you would get 20. But it's only that level of felony. A Class A felony gets 20. But the level at which you're weighing in, Mr. President, former president, you only get 10. I'm a nurse. We can't judge. We take on an oath, the Nurse Practice Act. She was right to step out. Her very character was assumed by Fox and broadcast. It's juror tampering. Horrendous. Yeah. I think most certainly you can feel threatened, you know. Did Auntie Stormy come to Barron's graduation? Very, very good question. Wow. People are not really Trump fans. Surprise. Seems like a rough crowd. You don't seem to like the former president that much, you guys. That was what he was doing on his day off. Now, one other thing that you'll probably hear about if you haven't actually heard about it yet, and I'm guessing this crowd has, is that in his remarks that he made outside the court, he said things that perhaps implicate him or suggest his culpability in this whole falsifying of records part of this case. Albert, do you have that video? Here we go.
I was paying a lawyer and marked it down as a legal expense. Some accountant, I didn't know, marked it down as a legal expense. That's exactly what it was. And you've been indicted over that?
So that
Is
was
that incriminating?
Yeah, so that was an interesting statement. I don't think we should overstate how incriminating it was. I mean, his name, he signed some of the checks to Michael Cohen, reimbursing him for these fees. When he started to say, I marked it down as legal expenses, my ears perked up, because it's been a little bit unclear exactly how the state is going to prove that Trump falsified the records, because many of these entries may have been made by the accountants for the Trump organization. And Cohen is apparently going to testify that Trump was part of the scheme to falsify. It seemed there that Trump was saying that he marked it down as legal expenses. And then it seemed like he caught himself and said the accountants marked it down. So he may still argue that he was essentially relying on the advice of the accountants, or the accountants entirely on their own were marking it down as legal expenses.
Yeah, there you go. So that's and this is very important, because I understand we've just come through a case where on the tax case, it's been a slam dunk. I mean, it was a layup, right? The judge looked at it and said, oh my God, I mean, this is like, it's like looking at the OJ crime scene. I mean, there's just evidence everywhere. But on this one, you need to draw the connection between falsifying records and falsifying records because you're trying to keep information away from the public. Again, there does seem to be a trail of breadcrumbs here, just, based on everything I've read and the legal analysis that we've heard here. And we'll hear more legal analysis in just a few minutes when David Katz joins, the former federal prosecutor. But what is interesting is that he really did almost step in it when he suggested, but again, he's not under oath, and he's just, there are a million ways you can step out of that.
Everything you say can be used against you in a court of law. They're probably going to re-rack that and roll it and play it for the jury.
Sure. I mean, they can play it, but again, it was on the courthouse steps, and he can always, say, oh, gee, I
misspoke.
Right.
Can you imagine his lawyer standing there going, oh, my God, he didn't.
Yeah. And there's a consistency of him saying incriminating things with zero consequences, says Quesadilla 79. It's so true. Yeah. Mike R. says, I would send Barron $20 for a graduation present, but I'm afraid his father would put it toward the legal debt. Wow. Really, I'm almost sure now, you guys really are not a Trump crowd. I'm really surprised by this. But anyway, that's your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.